Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video today. We talk about another generalist approach rod that I've been using for some time. And this is very specific to the area that I'm fishing in. Now, unlike the other rods where you're just walking around shore, this is what I use when I am on rocky areas, very specific, and when I need really long casts. Um, there are certain types of fishing wherein you are going to be using a lot of soft plastics. So this is one rod. Also, when you're fishing in a rocky area where you actually don't cast, but you dangle the line and put it in like small rocks, between rocks, crevices, and stuff like that. So this excels in that. Now, the biggest difference from this rod to the others is that this is not only has a sensitive tip, but at the same time, it has a very strong back section. And this is quite important, especially if you are fishing in and around structure. So this is where it differs from the rest. Now, I have another rod, the Bayliner, which I use in more forgiving ground. But when I'm in an area where there's a lot of snags, it's like the fishing that's kind of too close for comfort. This is what I'm taking, and again, a very versatile, very good range uh, of weights that you have. The problem with this rod is that it's discontinued. Okay, so for those guys that have an iteration of this model, then good for you guys. But if not, again, you could look for specs. I'm pretty sure that for this particular rod, there's at least one or two still from Major Craft, maybe. Around, I think the newest model that they have would be called the rockliver. Okay, but this is the N1 rockfish, and this is part of the. I think if you look at the discontinued items, you'll find that this is under the ultralight range, and the N1, okay, is the precursor to what is now called the 5G. So N1 stands for nano, the N. So this is like their very light rod and reel. And what's very interesting here is that this was pricey when I bought this. Okay, but look at the specs here. If you can see that, that is from 1 gram to 20 gram. Okay, 0.4 to PE1. Most of the time, I actually use 0.3 and all the way up to 0.8 for this most of the time. So shorter butt. You can still use jigs. I use a lot of 7 to about 10 grams for this. I don't actually use up the 20 that this can hold. Most of the time, I top out at 10. So this is the rod I use when I am pulling on the fish and I have to bring it in. There are other rods I use that are kind of similar to this. Here's one. This is the Dialuna, and this is 0.3 to 1 as well. Okay, and 2 to 15 grams. So this is technically about the same, and this is more of an ultralight rod, and this is 8'6", whereas this is 9. The difference between the two is that I use the Dialuna when it's mostly sand and I'm not fishing in structure, and you'll find that the tip of that is actually a bit softer. So for presentations wherein, let's say I'm fishing for brim, and most of the time I'm going after brim, um, okay, brim, snapper, like spangled emperor in shallow water. Uh, there is grunter for this as well, and say even jacks and queenfish in shallower water. So this is sort of the and grouper. Okay, and different types of grouper here. So for scaled down soft plastic use, this is what I use. Soft plastics. I think one of the one of the lures that I make, okay, that I enjoy a lot when fishing around rocks and sand is this one right here. This is a wiggle jig, and what it is a spin fisherman's version of a fly, basically. Okay, so I love using this with these. Now, obviously, I have been using a lot of just like this head right here. This is 9 grams, so it's perfect for something like this and fishing around rocks and stuff like that. Mostly off of jetties. So something like this, cast parallel, worked along the rocky edges. Really good. Chatterbait, of course, as this is. So with or without the blade, I fish this a lot with this combo when I need distance. Another is like this one right here. This is the from Gomoku, actually, Storm, and it's a vibe, but plastic. And then another lure that I use a lot with this is obviously a metal vibe, and it works really well with this because the sensitivity it gives me, because it's very light. It's a light combo. You cast it out, you reel it, and then you actually kind of feel the rhythm of the vibration when it stops, or when there's a different feeling. You just set the hook, bang, fish is there. Obviously, other than that, there's the bottom, Gomoku bottom, this one, and they're smaller. Okay, obviously I can still use small plugs such as this Dents for this, although for this particular rod I actually like fishing the bottom more, and usually I don't, although it can, so spoons, small spoons, I'm still yet to find that box with the small spoons, but small spoons, Castmasters, crocodiles, little Cleos, those sort of things. The whole idea for this rod actually is like a fly rod. This is when I saw this for the first time, I said like, hey, that's a very good substitute for a fly rod. I mean, it's 9 feet, so fly rods are 9 feet for most of the tackle that we use in saltwater. And the whole concept for me when I put this together is something that I could use when the weather turned sour. Okay, so the main difference is that instead of actually fishing around the flats, okay, I would be using this in the edges of the canals where there's bigger fish and there's structure. So most of the time, these bastards, when they strike, they go straight to structure, and you need something with a little bit of a backbone. And this has really good backbone. So the top part takes care of the casting, the working of the lure, and all that. And then once you hook into something big, you can actually kind of give it a little bit of muscle, whereas the other rods won't be able to do it. Okay, and this balances with two reels, a 2500, which could be like any Daiwa or Shimano, and a 2000. So the 2000, I use this one, the Caldea. This is the Caldea, old Caldea. Okay, and with this, I get a really light combo, very, very sensitive. Now, for soft plastics, when I use soft plastics, I like using slow reels. Okay, so for soft plastics only, this is a high-speed reel. The Sustain 2500 that I have balances well with this, and this is kind of like the all-around thing. Okay, so this is the reel I use with it most of the time, and this is spooled with 0.6. And you know, for just fishing off the rocks, fishing with stuff like this, and this, it's really good. Now, if I need to cast out, let's say the plan for the day was just soft plastics, then I tend to gravitate towards something like this. Now, also, what I do when it's exclusively soft plastics, and you know, there's different presentations as far as soft plastics are concerned. There's the jig heads, of course, and then there's the flutter hooks, which have the weight in the hook shank. Okay, but this, okay, this is the combo that I or the reel that I bought for boat jigging. But because of the weight, and if I'm using exclusively soft plastics that I want to work slow, this works well with this rod as well. Okay, so I think you've noticed that I've just switched the handle out. Now, I actually like the balance of this when paired together because of the weight. Okay, so how the weight is distributed with this is just really nice with this reel. I like it. It's quite light. Again, it makes the overall sensitivity of this combo quite nice. 2500, and I'm willing to bet that if you put something like a 3000 on this, it would still be okay, just as long as it's a lighter reel. Now, but that's when you're kind of using something like PE1. For me, I stay really light with this rod. Again, this is something that I love using for stuff like this. So this is the version without the hook guard, but there are some versions where I actually put a weed guard on this, and it helps me a lot when I'm fishing near rocks and then there's some weed, and just so it doesn't tangle. But what's good about fishing stuff like this, especially around you know, sandy patches with rocks on them, is that when you're working it slow on the bottom, let's say you're using this type of reel, it could be a soft plastic, it could be this, you'll feel the bottom, and because of the very sensitive tip that this gives you, you would be able to distinguish. It takes a lot of practice, and believe it or not, I used to do this when I was using mono back in the day. So you actually learn how to distinguish between a mud bottom, a sand, rocky, pebbles, and stuff like that. And then when you switch over to braid, it gets even more sensitive. This whole thing, because of how light it is, when you present something, you know, something small like this, and I believe this is the first time I've actually shown something like this. I'm starting to actually think about why I am sharing this. Anyway, Phillips wiggle jig. If you're in the States, there's stuff like this. Okay, but I just make this on my own. Anyway, so you have stuff like this. It's very freaking effective. And what it does is when you reel it in, it actually has a little bit of wiggle. But more importantly, if you just flick it, just a little bit of a twitch like that, it jumps up and then it wiggles on the way down, and it's deadly for fish like those bottom feeding fish, snappers, grunter, whatever. I caught so much actually on the flats, brim, grunter. They eat this. It's crazy. And the good thing about this is that I can actually make like as you can notice, it has a bigger hook. So when I set the hook on these, they have a really good purchase on the mouth and really good holding power. So, for stuff like that, you hop it and then they kind of follow it and inhale it. Now, what happens is there are a couple of good things there. Because the rod is so sensitive and it hits on the slack sort of, and the braid together with the whole system, it makes you feel the jig move up and then forward, and then there's a change, and it's so difficult to actually feel this on ordinary tackle if it's not something super sensitive like this. When you bring it up just slightly, okay, you feel a tick when the fish actually picks it up, and they're slack. It's not tight. They're slack. So remember that your jig is already moving forward away from the structure. And then when the fish goes and inhale it, before they get to turn, you're already setting the hook and reeling in. So it gives you a shot, especially on light line. And I'm using 4-pound test leaders with this. When it is also windy in the flats, because most of the time when we're fishing, there's this one area where there's a huge canal and then there's a flat at the back. And, when it's low tide, what happens is that the water rushes out of the flat going towards the edge of the canal. And there's a lot of fish waiting there. And, this is the sort of thing that you just flip it out near the edge, and then the fish would just grab it and go. But there are also times when you actually turn, right? And then you're fishing the flats for fish that are actually moving into the flats. It's kind of weird, but even if it's low tide, they're actually going in. And, they're going against the current. That's the nature of fish. They go up against the current. And what you could do is actually cast in quarters instead of actually casting up current. So what you do is actually fishing like the current's going this way, and you're fishing out and then towards your maybe about 11 o'clock. Okay, so you're quartering. You're fishing going up current, or you can cast out towards where the current originates and let it drift. Okay, the long rod lets you actually just bump the jig. How it moves is very interesting. So the position of the jig would be like this. It could be something like this as well. So I'm sorry I'm breaking into like technicalities here, but hopefully it gives you kind of like an idea of how I use this rod. So I cast out. Okay, so this is my area. The current is from here going there. I cast out either, let's say I cast to my left. Okay, so it's like that. I cast here. When I cast here, my drift is shorter, just like that. Okay, so what happens is that I just work this until it goes uh, that position and then move back. And then I do that. See, I do that. The ledge is to my left. Okay, so hold on. Let me just. So usually this could happen anywhere. Okay, but in this particular scenario, I'm fishing strip. Okay, like that canal, and then here is a flat, and the water is rushing out towards the canal. So I would be facing that way. Okay, the canal's on my left, and then I would fish first. This is what I do first. I would cover the edge of the canal. Okay, this is the canal. I'd cover this edge to the canal. So I cast and then let it fall and drift. And then I move all the way until I'm casting. Remember, the current's going this way. I don't cast up to where the current originates. I quarter it. So at around 11 o'clock. But I work the closer edges first because a lot of the fish are actually on the edge. And then there's a few that are going upstream. And what happens if I cast from here first and then fight the fish? In my experience, if I cast here, catch the fish, I reel it in, all the rest that are on the left-hand side would just get scared. So I've learned to actually start on the left first and then just move towards my right as the tide progresses. Anyway, so there's that application. And then on jetties and stuff, fishing, if this is the whole jetty, I'm fishing the edge. I'm not really necessarily casting out, but I'm fishing the edge up to about, casting like that and then working closer to the structure. There's also places where it's very shallow and it's very rocky. Like a similar scenario to that one place where there were actually holes. This actually shines in areas like that as well. Because of the length, you're able to cast out like small poppers, small stick baits. Okay, let me show you. When I say small poppers and small stick baits, this is what I mean. So this is something that is able to cast out no problem. See? So this is about 10 gram. And this one right here, it can also work, although this is kind of on the bigger side already. But something like this in shallow water, especially when there's some jacks and queens around, this is very, very hard to beat. A sinking stick bait such as this, a small one, you cast it out, even if you're just reeling it in these areas where there's bommies or rocks, big rocks on the bottom. Let's say you're fishing at about 10 meters or so, probably even 5 or shallower. You have these big rocks, you cast out and then just reel it in. Even if you don't work it like a traditional stick bait, what happens is that this has actually a slight wobble. And for areas like that, especially when the water is clear, that's a very good retrieve to do, because any sudden movements and because of how it's shallow, the vibrations would actually throw the fish off. That's why small lures such as these, cast out far and then just reeled in slowly with a little bit of a wobble, works really, really well. Okay, so to go back, this rod, okay, a very, very good all-arounder. It is designed for fishing off of rocks, for small rockfish. Okay, in Japan they're called mebaru. Now, adapting this to the environment that we face, it could be a very good rod for, or we're talking about specs. We're not talking about specific rods. Yeah, so something like this for grouper, snapper species, very, very good off the rocks. It can do a lot of things in the smaller scale. The long length gives you a really good distance. Okay, now when you're fishing the shore, it's not necessary to actually always cast far, but this excels when there's a lot of structure involved around you because of the soft tip that it has. It can work and cast really tiny lures, but when you are hooked up, the butt section is quite strong, okay, and gives you a lot of lifting power. This is what sets this apart compared to the other rods that I've shown so far. Now, the Yamaga is something similar to this, although it doesn't have the kind of range that this one has. As far as the weight is concerned, they're about the same, because at one point, this was actually the top end of Major Craft. Okay, I use 2000 and 2500 sized reels for this. For soft plastics, if I'm using nothing but soft plastics, I choose to use a slower reel in the 2500 size. An HG is very good when you're fishing a broad range of lures, like poppers and stick baits and plugs. And for something like this, I use it like I use my fly rod. Only the difference is that if there's wind and we're not able to fish fly rod. Now, also another really good reason for me to be using this when it's windy is that it gives me a lot of distance, even when it's the smaller lures. I would be able to present the lures quite far. And one of the lures that I love using with this is called a wiggle jig. Probably down the line, I'll make a video of how I make this, but then again, maybe not. It's such a hassle because you have to melt this, and shape it. Alrighty, but that's it for this video. Hopefully, now, again, I'm not selling stuff. What I'm trying to show you here is the specs of the rod. You can find it. I guess there's a lot of brands that have something similar, but Major Craft should have something like this in the newer series called the rockliver. Okay, I'm not too sure. I actually didn't check, but most of the time, what happens with brands like Major Craft, if they had these sub brands all over the place, and now they're trying to streamline things. So there are some stuff like, take for example the Sky Road that I have. It's like one of my favorite rods. The successor for that would be the Flat Trek, and if you look, the specs are kind of similar, and the the target, it's surf, and the the specific for flounder. All right, so it's something like that. So this particular model was very, very specific. That's also one of the reasons why I bought it. But if you look at the Flat Trek series, you'd be able to find something that's similar. I'm pretty sure that other brands would have it as well. Another brand that's worth checking when it comes to these things would be Abu Garcia, the JDM. Okay, so you go to Pure Fishing Japan and search for Abu Garcia, and then you'd be able to sift through everything. You'd be able to find something that's similar to this, and it doesn't break the bank. Alrighty, so hopefully, man, this series actually, I'm surprised that a lot of people are, tuning into it, and it's great because it's one of those things that actually kind of surprised me, because I thought that people wouldn't be interested with a more generalist approach, but apparently a lot of people kind of like this sort of thing. So I'm very, very happy. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. I have yet to make a playlist for this, so I'm gonna be doing that after I upload this. The difference with this, of course, is the range. All right, so it's something similar to the bogey. Okay, but the bogey is 1 to 25, and this is just 1 to 20. But this is kind of like the bogey, except for the extended range. right? It's not quite like the Yamaga that I showed in the video previous to this, because the Yamaga is actually more on the heavier side of things, and while this actually is on the lighter side of things. All right. So that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and like, share, subscribe, the usual stuff. And before we go, I'd like to thank our members. Thank you very much. Now, if you are interested to help this channel move forward, memberships is the way to go, aside from just watching and liking and all that, and that's great too. But if you want to do more, memberships is the way to go. It supports me, it supports the channel moving forward, yada yada. Thank you very much, members. Alrighty, that's it for this video. Again, thanks for hanging out. See you in the next one. Class dismissed.